Hello and welcome to First Formation, the Ohio Army National Guard's podcast. I am your host, Josh Heyman, and with me today we have the full command team of the Ohio Army National Guard. So allow me to introduce Brigadier General Matthew Woodruff, the Ohio Assistant Adjutant General for the Army, Command Sergeant Major William Workley, the Command Sergeant Major for the Ohio National Guard, and as well as Chief Warrant Officer 5, Richard Kerwood, the Ohio Army National Guard State Command Chief Warrant Officer. Thank you to each of you for joining me today.
Thank you.
This is an awesome, momentous occasion to bring us all together as a command team for our very first Formation podcast. And I believe what a lot of the viewers out there are wanting to see is really to see us for ourselves and our command team of our how we command and how we lead those elements out there. So I want to start with each of you just giving a personal introduction of yourself, and let's talk about things that maybe aren't on our bio sheet. We'll start with you, General Woodruff.
So my name is Matt Woodruff. I've been in the Army my entire adult life. So I spent 3 years in the U.S. Army Reserves. I then went to college at Bowling Green State University. You may have heard it's the Harvard of the Midwest, where I got a degree in elementary education. And then after that, I went on active duty for 13 years and then joined the National Guard. And I've been in the National Guard since 2009. Married to a wonderful woman, Lindsay, and I have 3 great children and their spouses, all married. And my first grandson will be a year old next month. So pretty exciting stuff in life and at work.
Wonderful. Thanks, General. Sergeant Major.
So I joined the Army out of high school in 1984, active duty. Did 3 years down at Fort Benning, now 4 more. 3rd Ranger Battalion as a food service specialist. Started out as left active duty in 87, went straight to the Ohio National Guard. Mainly came to Columbus to go to Ohio State. Studied aeronautical and astronautical engineering for a brief time, then started a hiatus, worked in construction. I'm a career MDay. This is really this 3-year tour is my first truly full-time other than deployments and active duty at the front end of my career. Been married for 29 years. My wife is Amy, and I have one son, a 25-year-old son, Mitchell.
Thanks, Sergeant Major. Now, Chief Kerwood.
Okay, just like the other two, I've pretty much been in the military my entire life. I started out as a split option, so I went to basic training between my junior and senior years of high school, and the whole time's been in the Army National Guard. And then I went to my AIT, actually an ADA unit as a radar repair guy. So it was about 8.5 months long time, electronics background. So that first enlistment, though, I had the opportunity to work with a lot of warrant officers in the maintenance field. And so that motivated me to attempt to become a warrant officer. So I boarded for the position, was able to get it, and went to warrant officer candidate school. Then immediately transferred over to the Signal MOS. So I became a systems warrant. And then I got a full-time job with the G6 as a technician, and then moved over to the USPFO data center and then back to the G6 before I was selected to have the command chief position. And, so I've been a lifetime nerd, and I love nerd stuff. A lot of technical warrants love that stuff. So it's been perfect for me. Really have a lot better life because of the opportunities the Guard has been able to give me. And I never really looked to be the command chief. Wasn't on my radar at all. But Mr. Stuckman asked me one day in the hallway, he was like, "Hey, you going to apply for this position? I'm getting ready to retire." I was like, "Well, I don't really know what you do. Do you just run around do parades?" There's a little bit more to it than that. So he brought me in his office and he was like, "Look, in this position, you have the ability to beneficially impact the other warrant officers and enlisted people who want to be warrant officers and junior officers that want to do warrant officers in the state." And so he showed me a lot of the things that he was involved with. And like I said, it never really occurred to me to do. I applied for the job, was selected, and this is probably the best job I've ever had.
That's great, Chief. I appreciate that. And I think that leads us into really, okay, what led you to making that choice? Why Guard? And why Army Guard? Why Ohio Army National Guard? Why did you make that your choice for your career move? And why did you stay with it all this time to be able to get to the position where you are? And I'll let anybody jump in for that.
So, my plan was always go active duty. From the time I was 5, I was going to be an Army man, and that was just the way it was going to be. But at that point in the 80s, that wasn't going to be a career. I always wanted to go to college as well. So, I was going to go to Ohio State, and, Ohio Guard, of course, was the fit. For the first 18 or 19 years of my career, I was a cook. And there were limited opportunities by the time I got to D7, but I had all the schooling I needed and was in the right position that when a first sergeant opportunity came up, I gave it a shot. And, I was intimidated as hell that first formation. I thought everybody figured it out. You stay with it. I've always enjoyed it. I've always enjoyed being around soldiers and in training and leading and all the challenges that go with that. So, like I said, every time I thought I was about done, another goalie would appear, and I was fortunate in many cases to be able to open that door and go through it. So,
and was there a person, a leader? Because a lot of times we may feel like fatigue in our own careers, and even though we have the vision to carry it forward, a lot of times, can you speak to like a mentor or a seminal moment that helped you kind of persevere through and get through to where you are now?
I was just going to say that, very similarly, when I was in probably middle school, I knew I wanted to be in the Army. We used to dress up in camouflage, run around the woods, put mud on our face because we didn't have camo sticks, and pretend we were in the Army and hunt each other down. So I always knew from a young age, this is what I wanted to do. And unfortunately, I didn't have great guidance to get me into the National Guard because I knew I wanted to go to college as well. And so I went into a career center, which in a career center, you have active duty recruiters and reserve recruiters. So I ended up in the U.S. Army Reserves, and the benefits just aren't the same. The benefits that we have in the National Guard with the state scholarship program and different things like that are better than what the reserves have to offer. So I ended up in the reserves, did my 3 years, went to college, and then went on active duty. And then when I was coming to the end of my active duty time, I knew I wanted to continue to serve. And to do that, it was an easy choice to come into the National Guard. I love the state community mission that the National Guard has, as well as some of the benefits that they have available as well. So for me, it was a really easy choice. And I've had, like he said, great leaders throughout my career, from time on active duty to my time in the National Guard, that have helped keep me on track or even give me guidance to push me further than I ever thought I would be.
Great. Thank you, sir. And sir, with your background with electronics and everything, there are so many other choices out there. Why pursue that in the Guard versus any other way that you could pursue that type of a career?
The reason why I chose the National Guard was different than General Woodruff and Sergeant Major Workley. I got in the Guard actually because my brother, who's 2 years older than me, he got in the National Guard when I had like 60% tuition per school, and he intended to go to Ohio State, which he did. He got 3 degrees in 5 years, all paid for by the National Guard. He had to work a little bit too, and his success kind of motivated me to do the same thing. However, I only went to school for maybe a couple of years and decided it wasn't for me, and decided to go more the technical route and do technical school and more practical, what I consider more practical things, so more practical college education. But during that first enlistment with the ADA, we responded to a flood response. There was a flood in Shadyside, Ohio, pretty bad one. Flattened people's houses. It was kind of a bad deal, and our unit got mobilized to do like perimeter security for, keep looters out, that kind of thing, the news out of it. And doing that mission made me stay in the Guard because I could see the relief on people's faces when the National Guard showed up and was rolling into that area. You could just see the weight lifted off of. You could see it in their faces. And I was like, wow, this is pretty awesome to help people out like that. So the same thing that motivates General Woodruff and Sergeant Major Workley with the local response that the Ohio National Guard does for the state really kept me around. And since then, we've responded to a number of things as a National Guard. On the cyber team that I was a part of for the last about 10 years of my career, before I got to pick up for this job, we responded to incidents, ransomware incidents. Same thing. Not as muddy and and, kind of kinetically messed up. But you could see the relief on people's faces when the National Guard shows up to help. And that is really something.
No, that's excellent, Chief. So I think in each of your cases of your why, of how you came into service, why you chose the Ohio Guard, I think that really does speak to really why we are here and the quality of the work and the service that we do for the people of Ohio. And that really speaks to our overall mission and vision that we have. Now, anybody can go on a sheet and read what our mission and vision is, but I would like to hear from you what your personal vision, being up here on the command team at Beetler, how we see that evolving, and how you put your own personal emphasis on that vision, and then how do we propagate that down to each of the units so that everyone feels a part of it, and it's all one team, one fight as we move forward.
So I've published 2 command messages since I've been the Assistant Adjutant General for Army. The first command message was my philosophy. So if someone reads that philosophy, and it's probably a page and a half, about the things I look for in leaders, whether that's being selfless, whether that's the attitude that someone brings, the competency levels that they bring to the table. A leader can read that and understand where I come from and what I expect. And then the second command message was my vision. And it's a little over 2 pages long. There's 10 basic points that come to it, and I'm not going to go through those. But what I tell you is my vision is that we have leaders who are empowered to make decisions, take initiative, and not fear that something is going to happen badly because of the decision they make, that I assume the risk for the decisions they make. And then also that we do everything in a safe manner, that we're training to standard, that we're training hard, because I believe that when we push ourselves, when we challenge ourselves, when we bend our resilience, but not break it, that we bend it, we test, and we'll have soldiers that are excited about what they joined to do. And then, being selfless, like when we show up every day, my motto is people first, winning matters. And I took that from General McConville, was the Chief of Staff in the Army before General George. And I truly believe that if every one of our leaders and every one of our soldiers think about others first in the decisions they make, we'll be a better organization. And then when you talk about winning matters, winning that first fight, having trust-built, cohesive teams in your organization, that they feel like they can flourish, that we win the first fight, which might be on the recruiting front, it might be in retention. All those are the first fight that allow us to win the future fight. And finally, like Chief Kerwood said earlier, I want to give every soldier in our organization the opportunity to be their best self. So everything that they do should be to grow and get better. And then if there's something that blocks that, some barrier in their way, it's my job and our job as a command team to remove those barriers so that they can achieve their best self.
Thank you, General. Do either of you have anything to add to your own personal vision that adds to how we execute with the Ohio Guard every day?
The only thing I would say is that, when the boss sends that message out, I read it, of course, and then I actually sent it out to all the warrant officers, and I tried to explain to them the so what behind that, why he's trying to get after what he's trying to get after. So instead of going through every list, every bullet listing, just give a general overview of what he means. And, his motto, people first, winning matters. People first is the first part of that for a reason. And he sincerely believes that. And he wants people to do what they can to, like he said, be their best self. And so our job as warrant officers is to support his vision and do that and make sure people understand that. And so, I had an opportunity to talk to Sergeant Major Workley about hey, how can the warrant officers help the enlisted side? And he was like, well, a lot of times the enlisted soldiers don't have enough time to work on the equipment. They don't get enough time, or they feel they don't have enough time to do their job, what they signed up to do. And so he said, you warrants can help us out by making sure the environment's set to facilitate that. And so that's one of the talking points I'm going to have at the Warrant Officer Muster this year, is talk about how we can help the unit, get soldiers more reps on equipment and the actual jobs they signed up to do. Because, I've managed IT people, I look at it from an IT perspective because it's where my background's at. But, IT people are kind of tough to manage, because not only do they man, compensation comparable to what's on the outside, which the federal government sometimes can't do. But they also look for challenges, and they'll take a pay cut to go someplace where they have a challenge and a purpose. And I feel the same way about soldiers. You know, we got some smart soldiers, and if you don't challenge them or you don't give them purpose, they'll look for it elsewhere. And sometimes that's out of the guard. So it's our responsibility to make sure that not only they can be their best selves, but feel like they have a purpose and they're doing the things that they want to do, what they signed up to do.
No, absolutely. And so, and I think that really speaks to how we win every day, but then making sure that we understand that in order for us to win, we have to put people first. How on the enlisted side are we getting with teaching our first line supervisors to put people first so that we have the ability to be able to win?
I think a major piece of that is, you know, we've instituted and then expanded on our first line leader training. You know, several years ago, we recognized a void between institutional training with our most junior first line leaders, and so we worked on developing a concept of first line leader, and it's evolved over time, and we really are trying to set those junior leaders up to have the toolkit, one, to communicate with you know properly with their junior soldier, with their subordinates, and with their peers as well. If we can build competent teams and squads, I mean, we can do any mission that hierarchy throw at us.
Absolutely. And as we build those competent teams and squads, this is a great aside and a shift to one other thing that I wanted to talk about today was some upcoming changes to the enlisted promotion system, which I know is near and dear to your heart, Sergeant Major, but something that affects all of us throughout the Guard structure. Is why did the structure need to change? What wasn't working, and how are we seeing the evolution of change, and how are we actually implementing that change within our soldiers, both with those that are looking to promote and with the first line supervisors that are helping them through?
Okay, well, so for 10 or 15 years ago, we went to a centralized promotion system where we had centralized boards that would meet once a year and evaluate every soldier in a career field in particular ranks and rank them 1 to N for an order of merit list. And it was really based on their record, and there was a fair amount of subjectivity in that. And then the other piece is those boards would work off of a baseline. So there had to be some guidance for the board to left and right limits, and so to try to make equitable scoring. So the trouble was that we recognized was every year that baseline would get adjusted individually at the board level. So it was a moving target for all of our soldiers. They had really no clear idea. Generally I got to shoot well, I got to do well on my PT test, I need to have good evals. So what does the board really look at? What do they value? So we've talked about it for a long time, and last year was the first year that we implemented a statewide baseline that doesn't change. Okay, so there's 7 hard score categories in there that we look at, like performance, potential, and schooling, and various other major areas, and they're ranked on a scale. And what we've done is, like the scale goes 2 to 8, and a 5, we tried to adjust the scoring. So that's a soldier who does everything that they're supposed to do, but maybe not anymore, and not any less. And then we looked at historical data of our populations at each rank, and tried to adjust the scoring from 2 to 6 that matched our formation. Bottom line, we're grading our soldiers against their peers within the Ohio National Guard.
And how does that weight differentiate between, so you may have some soldiers that are really good at soldiering, but maybe don't have a whole lot of that after duty education. And then on the other side, okay, you see some that have emphasized more. how are we avoiding having a heavy emphasis on one side rather than the other in order for us to have a well-rounded NCO corps?
So there's that's part of the program is that there's 7, categories. So nobody's strong in all 7 categories. And was why we kind of designed it that way. Another major change that's happening this year is, so I indicated that we've been doing centralized boards for a long time. The E4 population out there, the specialists and corporals that are looking to be sergeants, and the sergeants that are aspiring to be staff sergeants, we're moving to a semi-centralized process. So what that means is there won't be a central board at the state level that looks at their records every year. They're going to be assessed on administrative points. So there's chart in the regulation in AR 600-A-19 that awards a certain amount of points for various scoring areas. So weapons qualification, if you have so many hits, 40 hits out of 40, you get a certain score. ACFT, civilian education, military education, all those areas. So it really takes subjectivity out of it. And it really puts the control in the soldiers' hands then of how they can move up. And then the last change that's going to be implemented in next year's cycle will be battalion level appearance boards for those E4s and those E5s. So they will go to be like an old school promotion board and active duty. We used to have to appear, if you wanted to be a sergeant, you would appear in front of a board and get asked questions, and they'd look at your record and they'd assess your appearance and everything. And the sergeant major at the battalion level was the gateway to the OML, to the list. When you had, and I think that's something we've lost over the years, and particularly in the Guard, is that experience of having the appearance board. I could tell you, in 1987, I went to my E5 board. Master Sergeant Major Cobb from the Ranger Battalion was the president, and 4 first sergeants, two of which are Ranger Hall of Famers. And they drilled me and drilled me, and I left out of the room sweating, thinking, oh my God. And I passed the board, and I thought, there's not a CEO in the world that I can't stand in front of an interview now. And I thought that the value of having that experience was really good. It gave me a lot of confidence moving forward.
I would just say to add to that, throughout my career in the National Guard, what I felt in our board processes was lacking was transparency. So soldiers would go before a board, whether it was on the officer side or the enlisted side, and had no idea what that baseline was, because each board was selecting their baseline at the time of the board. So a soldier could potentially rise or drop and have no idea why, and may have improved themselves from the last board, but saw a decline in their points or whatever the case may be. So we wanted to get ahead of that and publish it. So we publish it in advance, so every soldier knows before going into that board cycle what the board is looking at as a baseline, and then they can kind of look at their career and figure out where they need to improve. So whether that's getting evaluations cleaned up or whether that's taking another APFT or ACFT now, they can do those things to improve their standing.
Absolutely. And understanding that enlisted promotion doesn't happen in a vacuum. We're also there with our warrant officers and with our officers as well that are helping us through the system. How are we now leveraging, or how well are we successfully leveraging the warrant officer corps and the officer corps to make sure that as these changes are hitting the roads, that we can have success?
I would say that from a warrant officer perspective, the sergeant major talked about how the first line leader is responsible for training the soldiers, the junior graded soldiers. Warrant officers serve in that capacity as well, at least on the technical side, like signal equipment, that kind of thing. So I know I've had the opportunity to work with a number of warrant officers over the years, and a lot of the warrant officers, they don't actually absorb the responsibility of the enlisted promotion system or anything of that nature. That's usually ran by the NCOs. However, they serve as like a safety net for that. When they see stuff going off rails, they can kind of nudge it back and say, hey, we're going to miss a deadline here. We need to get this stuff completed. So I know when I was on deployment, we worked in the signal section, and 2 of the signal warrant officers there helped kind of shepherd that process to make sure that people's packets were in to brigade. So that way we didn't have people missing promotion opportunities. Now, one thing I would add to his redesign of the enlisted promotion system is that a strong NCO corps builds a strong warrant officer corps. Those are can be targeted, specific targets for people who want to be warrant officers, especially if they have the right mindset for that. There's a philosophy to being a warrant officer, and that is you want to know a lot about a narrow field. And so if we have people that like to do that, keep reps on technical equipment, those are the people that we go after to be warrant officers. So insert recruiting warrant officer banner. That's exactly right.
But then we also have to think about the balance that we have. Like, hey, we need good warrant officers just as much as we need great NCOs and senior NCOs. So how hard is it to not have to fight at the end of the table between you guys to be able to get those critical resources? Because, hey, we could have great NCOs, great senior NCOs, in certain capacity. Sergeant Major's going to fight to the death for a lot of those, but we also see their utility as chiefs. How can we temper both sides and basically be able to keep both sides happy with retention, with our numbers, as well as making sure that we are not only maintaining the mission, but growing the mission?
Well, I say that, we have a respected kind of competition. I've already had conversations with Sergeant Major. My intent is not to pull somebody out that is in line for a senior enlisted position, because we need good senior enlisted people like Sergeant Majors. We need good officers. So there is a little healthy competition for that. But at the end of the day, I think we're all in agreement that it's what is best for the individual soldier is what matters. He might want somebody to be a sergeant major, but maybe that person was like, hey, I don't really want to be a sergeant major. I want to be a warrant, which is totally understandable. But, at the end of the day, that's how you call that want to be sergeant majors. And I've tried to recruit some people on the warrant officer side, and they're like, no, I want to be a sergeant major. I'm like, good for you. I'm glad, because we need good sergeant majors as well.
And if we have a culture that everyone in the organization is trying to enable every single soldier to be their best self, and are close, and they've communicated with their team, and they know what they want, and they know what drives them, it makes those decisions a lot easier, because we already know which direction they want to go. And you're going to have people that are extremely technical every day and love that technical side, and you have people that really desire to lead formations at different levels. And you can be a leader as a warrant officer as well. It's just a very different dynamic. You're maybe a section leader. As a warrant officer, you might be a commander at certain detachments, but primarily to lead organizations, you're going to be a senior NCO or an officer. And so if everyone gets to know their people well and truly communicates and understands what their desires are, then it makes it very easy for us to chart that path to get them to that successful conclusion.
I love that you're tapping in on culture, sir, because ultimately we've been talking about a lot of heavy topics here, but ultimately the culture that we strive for within the Ohio Army National Guard, we also try to understand work-life balance. We understand the families that we bring into this culture, and into this lifestyle. What do we have to say for those family members that are out there, that where we are helping reinforce their lives as the military family, and what new initiatives or what new types of things do we envision to enhance that culture and make our families feel more a part of that culture?
So I think that's a really hard one to get across. On active duty, it's very easy because everyone's on the same installation. So you have the families there, everybody's close. In the National Guard, we're spread to 43 different armories across the state. So it is more challenging to bring everyone together. We do a family readiness conference every year. The benefits and opportunities that families have, there's kids camps, there's family getaways, there's all kinds of stuff like that probably go underutilized because the messaging doesn't always get to the lowest level, or a mailer goes out and it gets thrown away. But what I would say is if the culture is created where we're truly feeling like a family, we truly care about each and every individual, and that's not just the soldier, that's the soldier's family, loved ones, that's the community that we serve in. You know, I challenge each of our brigade command teams. I need you to do one family employer type event, one community event each year. So whether that's an open house, whether that's something like that, to try to bridge that gap and give opportunities for families to come together and then potentially ask questions when they have issues or come to us ahead of time so we can help them resolve things before they get too far down the road.
Anything to add, Chief, Sergeant Major?
I would say from a family perspective, Boss talked about a lot of good things from a family perspective, but I think at the end of the day, the things that convinces the families whether they want their soldier to continue serving or not is they do a balance on whether it's more work or less benefit to stay in the Guard, or if their lives are enriched because of it. And I would submit that if you look at everything, you know, kind of logically on that, you know, and the boss has worked on ways to kind of lessen the up-tempo strain on soldiers. I don't think that those good news stories get out as much as they should. However, at the end of the day, that's what the family kind of evaluates is, hey, is it more work and less benefit for my soldier to continue serving, or is my life better because of membership in the National Guard? And like I said before, you know, I would submit that it is in most cases, because I think there is a ton of benefits to being in the Guard that people only know maybe a handful, because they're the big ones that get all the marketing and, you know, like the college tuition, GI Bill, you know, things like that. But if you start looking at all the little things, they add up to pretty big stuff. And so I could submit that, you know, my life's been much better, and I've been able to provide for my family there because of being Guard. And that's not just because my full-time deployment was there, but, you know, the drill pay is good, and ancillary benefits that are good as well.
Absolutely. So let's go, before we adjourn here, let's go and do like a couple of softer topics, more rapid fire. So as we talk about integrating family in here, we know like, hey, we have to be able to do our jobs and then go back to our families. How do each of you make sure that you can maintain a work-life balance and make sure that you don't get burnt out at the end of that day when we come home and then we face a whole other bevy of challenges?
So this would make my wife laugh, but actually working out is one of the things that helps me. I go to a gym in the mornings. Usually I'm there at 6:15 in the morning and do a workout. That helps relieve some stress from me. I love to read and I love to listen to audiobooks. So I constantly tell the team when I'm in front of them what I'm reading and what I'm listening to at that moment, and just try to talk to them about. That's one, it's enhancing for me. It gives me diverse thought and viewpoints to think about. And so those are things that help me relax. And shamelessly, I have gotten onto a classic car restoration kick where I'm finding myself watching a TV station that plays these continuously. So those things help relieve some of my stress. And I try as much as I can not to take a lot of work home with me.
All right, sir. So if you could restore any classic car, what would it be?
So I was currently looking at a 66 Chevelle SS. I would really love to have something like that. And I'm also a big fan of like the early Land Cruisers. So those are the two I actually have saved on my phone right now that I'm like looking at. But I love old cars. I grew up, my dad always restored old cars. So my first car was a 66 Pontiac Le Mans that my dad restored. And then before he passed away, he and I were working on a 62 GMC pickup. But once he passed away, he was the brains of the operation. I was just the go get this screwdriver, hold the light here. So when he passed away, I ended up selling it to a friend of his. But I would love to do something like that and get back to it. Get a nice LS engine in it, make it really go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, how do you find that work-life balance, Sergeant Major?
I try to maximize when I'm at home that I'm at home. I don't,
The pool and the hot tub.
the pool, the hot tub, and I have a wood shop, so I do a lot of woodworking, mainly in the bad weather.
What do you specialize in with your woodworking?
I don't really specialize. I made everything from from a grandfather clock to a farm table to
Trophy steak.
fuzzies, for awards for best warrior competitions, all kind of stuff, whatever. Done a little bit of carving, just try to, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Yeah, I don't do a lot of other stuff, but just, around the house. And so I think it's really important when you're in a senior position where your activity at work's pretty high and it can get stressful, that I'm pretty good at shutting that on. So somewhere along Route 33, I kind of shut that down, and I think about what I'm going to do when I get home, and then reverse next morning when I'm heading back down the other direction in traffic, start to think about what I need to do when I get to work. So that's out of my I don't get too high or low on anything. I'm trying to keep the keel and serve me well.
What do you do, Chief?
Well, before this job, the job I had prior to it was the deputy G6 position, which was pretty busy. And so there's a lot of times, you get calls in the middle of the night because stuff wasn't working or things like that. So it was hard to do that. And by getting this job, my wife, who I've been married to for 20 plus years, told me that I was like a whole different person, because I do have the ability to have a little bit more for better work-life balance. So I like to wrench on things, I like to work on cars, but mine's out of necessity, not because of a collects his car like he does. I've got my pickup truck that I've been working on for a long time now, it seems. But my cars are older, but I've been able to keep them running, so I'm pretty proud of that. But I have a ton of hobbies, and, I like to spend a lot of time with my grandkids. I got two boys, one's 4 and one's 2. And then I hang out with my son and my daughter doing barbecue. We like to do barbecue. And I just got a ton of hobbies. I garden, I do woodworking occasionally, but I got plenty of things to keep me busy. So,
all right. And then we go to a lot of public facing events as an Ohio Army National Guard. And sometimes at these events, we get some famous people, like some former Buckeyes or, very influential people that come. Of all of these events that you guys have been to in your illustrious careers, what is the number one person or your favorite encounter with a favorite person in your role within the Guard that it's allowed you to be able to meet these people, interact with these people? Are there any that come to mind?
Yeah, I've actually got 2, and one's famous, one's not famous. But so because of my role, I get to go out and do a lot of broadcasts, interviews, and TV, radio type stuff. So Chris Merritt, who's like the director of the Ohio Association of Broadcasters, is one of the most phenomenal people I've ever been around. She's always energized, excited, and just a great person. And she makes every one of those opportunities extremely exciting. But probably celebrity-wise, last year I spoke at the Ohio High School Coaches Association, and I was introduced by Ryan Day. So we got to shake hands. I gave him a coin. And then sitting behind me was Chip Kelly, who put his hand on my shoulder and told me I gave a good speech. So I would say 2 pretty prominent Buckeyes right now in the coaching staff that were pretty impactful in the events that I've done.
I think a little bit different direction. I got we made a few celebrity types along the way, but my this position and my turf or my formal position allowed me to be in some rooms that I never thought I'd be in. So we have the state partnership program, and then we have some of these high level meetings when I was with Ag, and then you'd be with a prime minister or with an ambassador, and you have to have a dinner at the ambassador's house. But that's pretty cool. But I think my favorite encounter was I was at a NATO conference in Hungary, and we had just a social event one evening, a cookout, and I found myself at a bigger table with the senior enlisted advisor to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the SEAC, the highest level RCO in the service, and 2 very senior NATO, one German and one English NCO, and just the conversation was fascinating. Sometimes I'm a little starstruck being in this position, sitting in a room with some folks like this, and just interact on a peer-to-peer level.
I would say there's a lot of people that I'm impressed by. You know, I had the opportunity to go to the the Veterans Hall of Fame. There's a ton of people there that were inducted into the Veterans Hall of Fame. That General Ashinghurst, actually, it was her event as she put on, and it kind of humbles you, because these people are doing more stuff in their after military service than like 10 times more than I do on a day-to-day basis. So it kind of makes me feel like a slacker. But we also got to meet a sergeant major who was a Medal of Honor recipient at the memorial this year. And talk about him impressive. So, older guy, super humble. I was asking him, like, man, how did you get the courage to do something like that? And he goes, honestly, I don't even remember half of them. And I was like, that's awesome. You know, that a guy like that could do those things, and probably the rest of his life, didn't dwell on it, just went on with his life. Isn't that something?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was just awesome to meet the guy. So I really enjoyed that part.
Yeah. So this is an awesome way for us to be able to reach out and say, like, there's so many fringe benefits to what we do and to serving. And for me, having served and to be a part of it, that's been a huge thing for me, is to be able to, you never know who you're going to run into. You never know who you're going to meet. And the perspectives that you get from them is just only going to enlighten everything else that you touch. So it's great to see how each of you have experienced that. So we'll just do one last parting shot from each of you. If there's something that you would like to say out to the echelons, to the families, what's one final thought that each of you want to say to the folks? I'll start with you, Chief.
I would just say that, first of all, thanks for the opportunity to be a part of it. It's a great idea to do this. I think it was, whose idea was it? You guys? Oh, Sergeant Major Workley? Sergeant Major. I just appreciate the opportunity to serve in this organization as long as I have. I've met a lot of people, a lot of awesome people. I've been able to talk to people about being a warrant, which is super rewarding, and see them come up through, the ranks is awesome as well. I'm just grateful to have the opportunity to, like I said, serve. And, I never thought I'd pursue this position. I like to be a nerd and do nerd stuff. And, Sergeant Major Workley and General Woodruff, they love IT. I mean, every time I talk about it, more IT.
It's our lifeblood.
I can't get enough. And it might look like they're sleeping, but I know it's just meditation and concentrating on what I'm telling me. So at the end of the day, I think that being in the Guard is a very worthwhile pursuit. I can't think of a better purpose, really, than defending our state, our homeland. We'll fighting where necessary for the nation, for everybody's freedom. I think it's a worthwhile pursuit.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. So our major parting shots.
I just want to tell the 10,000 plus soldiers out there that I'm really proud of everything they do every day. And I really want them to be proud of their service and embrace their legacy, understand the legacy of this organization, because it's done a lot for a long time, and you're part of that. You're part of the less than 1% that wear the uniform in this country, and it's actually something to be proud of.
General Woodruff.
So one, I would echo that we get the opportunity in these jobs to travel all over the country and all over the world visiting our great soldiers. And I can tell you, everywhere we go, we're amazed at the talent we have in our organization, the commitment that the soldiers have, especially the traditional that are balancing family, civilian job, and the military. And they're still doing amazing things with great attitudes. I just want to emphasize, when I pick the motto, people first, winning matters, I truly am committed to people first and encouraging each and every soldier in our organization to strive to be their best. And if we embrace that everything we do is about someone else, our G1 shop, our G4 or G3 shops are focused on making things better for the subordinate organizations. And at the brigade, battalion, company, troop, and battery, if that's our focus, then every single one of our soldiers are going to thrive.
General Woodruff, Command Sergeant Major Workley, Chief Kerwood, thank you all so much for providing all of your insights, all of your knowledge, all of your leadership. It's inspiring to all of us, and I hope that it's inspiring to another generation of Buckeye Guardians as we move forward and we evolve as an organization. We thank each and every one of you for tuning in. Please like and subscribe through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, however you are reaching us. And please comment if there was something that you liked, if there's something that you didn't like. If there's something that you would like for us to talk about on our next formation, please let us know. And we will see you in formation.